Good evening, I'm Nisa Petrilli.
I'm Jay Kaplan.
I'm Steve Ferguson.
And I'm Sean Roman.
And this is the On the Sports Lines NBA Finals Preview. Memorial Day weekend is upon us, which means the NBA Finals are about to get underway, and baseball has reached the quarter pole. Tonight, we'll give you scouting reports for the Cavaliers and the Warriors as they get ready for their third straight NBA Finals meeting, and debate whether their dominance is good or bad for the NBA. We'll also take a look at where the Yankees and Mets are 40 or so games into the season. As always, you can find us on social media, follow us on Twitter @OnTheSportsLines, and like us on Facebook at facebook.com/OnTheSportsLines. For the third straight year, the Cleveland Cavaliers will face the Golden State Warriors in the NBA Finals. We're going to break down each team for you, starting with the defending champs. Sean, what's the strength the Cavaliers need to play to against the Warriors?
Right now, simply said, the Cavaliers have the mojo. They've brought a championship to Cleveland for the first time in over half a century. They have the strongest, both physically and in terms of overall talent, the strongest player in the NBA in LeBron James. And in years past, I've said, you know, LeBron's an intriguing player. He wasn't able to win a championship at first, so then he went elsewhere. What team was he on, Nisa? When he was finally able to do that?
Yeah.
Miami Heat?
Then he came back to Cleveland, and at first he wasn't able to do it. And last year, he brought them a celebration like they never had before. Now, he has that aura and confidence on his side. His inside game is going to be strong. Bill Laimbeer just gave an interview about him and said, you know, I don't necessarily agree, but he said compared to MJ, LeBron's got it all because of the multifaceted game. Shooting, assisting, rebounding, flying into the air. All around, nobody beats LeBron, and that's what Golden State is up against. To me, it's like, if you guys, you know, remember high school English, you had Beowulf and Grendel. They called it the irresistible force against the immovable object. This particular series is going to be about the irresistible force against the irresistible forces. So I'm going with Beowulf, but I analogize him to LeBron James.
Okay.
Wow.
Interesting. Steve, what's the weakness that the Cavaliers can't allow the Warriors to take advantage
Well,
of?
you know, Sean brought up all the good points about the Cleveland Cavaliers, and there are a lot of them. But the one thing they have to make sure they do, they've got to play defense. This is one of the weaknesses they have. And when you look at the way the Warriors play, you have to. Certainly, if you're Iman Shumpert, you better stick to Stephon Curry like sweat on skin. And if you're Kevin Love, you better rebound the way you did against the Celtics in Game 5, 17 rebounds. Tristan Thompson has to be a monster rebounding and physically playing against whoever he's facing, whether it's Kevin Durant or Zaza Pachulia or David West. They cannot forget to play defense. If they do that, the Warriors, with their offense and the way they space the ball, they will absolutely annihilate them if they're not careful.
So, Jay, who's the X factor for the Cavs?
Well, Steve kind of stole a little bit of my thunder there, but to me, it's got to be Tristan Thompson, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, all the talk obviously starts with LeBron, followed by Kyrie, and then Kevin Love, and deservedly so. But the player, but Thompson is the guy who could turn the tide against the Warriors. He does all the dirty work, sets the screens, plays physical defense, gets on the offensive glass. Near double-double guy every night. Cavs' best offensive rebounder. Practically every lineup the Cavs have run out there this season is better by double-digit percentages in offensive rebounding per 100 possessions if Thompson is in that lineup. And if you guys will remember, led them in rebounding in the finals last year. Various points in the finals, he's going to be asked to defend both JaVale McGee and Draymond Green, keeping them off the glass, preventing them from making plays, disrupting their ability to defend the rim and protect when LeBron and Kyrie make their forays to the hole. Things like that won't really show up in the box score, but they're going to be crucial to the Cavs defending their title.
It's true. Well, time now to turn to the Western Conference champion Warriors, who are the first team in NBA history to start the playoffs 12-0. Pretty amazing, actually.
Yes.
Our guys will break them down the same way: strength, weakness, and X factor. Steve, what's the strength the Warriors need to play to against the Cavs?
The Warriors definitely need to continue what they've been doing, which is basically spacing the court and getting as many good open looks as possible. Their passing has been phenomenal so far. If it continues to be, and if Stephen Curry and Andre Iguodala and Kevin Durant are hitting their threes.
Don't forget Klay Thompson.
Yeah, which is the other guy that we tend to forget. And Klay Thompson, they will give the Cavaliers a very difficult time.
So, Sean, what's the weakness that the Warriors can't allow the Cavs to take advantage of?
Well, first I want to mention is that they really haven't been tested whatsoever yet.
True.
No.
So their adversity is they've just been making layup after layup, metaphorically, in their run until a very quality team in the Cavaliers, who have been tested at least a little bit more throughout the series. I mean, even against the Spurs, a very decimated team, they just rolled right over them in 4 games. And for one, I'm happy because I don't have to hear any more of Greg Popovich's political comments. I don't like my sports people getting political, at least in this episode.
Wow, okay.
But also, it's a lack of strength for the Warriors on the inside. One thing that is very fascinating about the Warriors is they're built, as I said before, they're irresistible forces in terms of their shooting. But on the other side, they haven't given up totally on the defensive end. Above average in all areas.
Yes.
Nevertheless, that's still their weak point because of the Cavaliers' strength. So the 2 players who are going to have to step up is, on the inside, Draymond Green needs to be tough. He has no problem doing that. He's like their most physical presence there is. And on the perimeter, Klay Thompson. He's their best perimeter defender. So these 2 have to watch those areas, the courts, to compensate for their weaker area.
So, Jay, who is the X factor for Golden State?
Well, I mean, this is an easy one based on what he's done so far. It's JaVale McGee. I mean, one of the biggest weaknesses the Warriors had before this season was the lack of an athletic big man who could run the floor on offense and protect the rim on defense.
Exactly.
And who'd have thought the player that would not only fill that role but make a major impact in filling it would be JaVale McGee. But he has, and it could make all the difference. He's really found himself with the Warriors, and his game has actually really blossomed. His athleticism, quick scoring ability brings an extra dimension to what's already a high-powered Golden State offense. He's proved capable of creating separation from his defender. He's been able to find position down low, and he's actually improved his low-post game tremendously. His per 36 minutes numbers are ridiculous. 24 points, 11 rebounds, 3.7 blocks on 74% field goal shooting in the playoffs. This is ridiculous. Nobody would have saw this coming from him a few years ago. Him coming off the bench, I think, may force the Cavs to change up their rotation so that Tristan Thompson can spend more time guarding him, because there's no way Kevin Love can guard him inside. And no one else on the Cleveland bench can do it either. So, I mean, Curry, Durant, Green, and Klay Thompson will be the focus. But the NBA title returning to the Bay Area may hinge on the impact that JaVale McGee can give them off the bench as the X
Well,
factor.
we each analyzed it. Can I just go around and get some quick predictions?
Sure.
Nisa, you want to start off?
I think it's going to come down to Game 7. I mean, for sure.
Okay.
I'm going to give it to the Cavs.
All right.
Yeah.
That's your husband talking. Honestly, this year, Game 7, I do think it will go full 7 if everybody stays healthy. I like the Warriors in 7.
I also like the Warriors in 7. I think it's going to be a great series, but I think the Warriors will have just a little bit more than the Cavs this time around.
And I say that LeBron, because of that mojo I mentioned before, is just unbeatable right now. Cleveland.
2 and 2, even
Interesting.
split.
Yeah.
We
We'll
will
see.
see.
Yeah, interesting.
As previously mentioned, this is the 3rd straight season that the Cavaliers and the Warriors will face off for the Larry O'Brien Trophy. The Dubs won in 2015, and the Cavs' epic comeback from down 3-1 gave them the title last year. Both teams seem to be several levels above practically all contenders in their respective conferences. Is their dominance good or bad for the NBA? Jay, which side do you land on, good or bad?
Well, I land on the unpopular side because, yes, I actually believe this is good for the NBA. You know, they said the same thing about this in the 80s when it seemed like every year the NBA Finals was Larry Bird's Celtics against Magic Johnson's Lakers. But think about what that gave us. Epic finals with matchups loaded with future Hall of Famers and series that were must-watch TV. The NBA loves that because it brings in the casual fan. Now, the Cavs and the Warriors are this generation's version of the Celtics and the Lakers, with LeBron and Steph as Bird and Magic. You know, now, while others may hate it, I love seeing the 2 best teams in the association looking across the conferences at each other, knowing that the entire regular season for both of them has one purpose, to get back to the finals, to have another crack at the other. And this also forces other teams to take a really hard look at themselves. Like, are you a contender? Are you really a contender who needs one player maybe to make the difference, or are you more of a pretender, you need to blow it up and start over? Think about this. Lakers and Celtics eventually gave way to the bad boy Pistons, the Dream and the Rockets, Jordan and the Bulls, Duncan, Spurs. So while it's going to, it'll be interesting for me to see how that follows in this generation. The Spurs, Boston, who has the #1 pick in the draft, the Spurs, Kawhi should be healthy. The Rockets, with what they were able to accomplish this year, or some other team we haven't even talked about, improving themselves to the point that the Warriors and Cavs, at bare minimum, have at least more of a struggle to get to the point where they may play each other again. But you know what? Until then, though, I'm going to enjoy the Battle of the Titans for as long as it lasts.
Wow.
Steve?
Well, for me, I really have mixed feelings about this. I'll tell you why. I think it's okay to have one team that's dominant. Let's say we're the Warriors as an example. But to have two teams that are dominant every year for fans outside of Cleveland and Golden State could be a little bit boring, to be honest with you. And here's the thing. The two series that both Cleveland and Golden State played prior to that, playing Boston on one side and playing San Antonio on the other, if the two star players on both these teams didn't get injured, it would have been a lot more interesting to see if one of them would have won in 6 games or won in 7 or possibly been upset. So my thought is this is not as good to have two dominant teams every year. If you had one team that were dominant and another team that had a chance to win or maybe lose, I think this would be a lot more intriguing.
Sean?
I think it's bad for the NBA and bad for the country overall. It's much better when there is a random selection of teams and fan bases getting involved each year, gathering around a local area and supporting their local community. Let's look at the other sports. In that same stretch over the last 3 years in baseball, there have been 5 cities who've had the chance to gather around their local heroes. Chicago, Cleveland, Kansas City, New York, and San Francisco. Kansas City being there twice. In football, another 5 cities, New England, Atlanta, well, that's Boston, Denver, Carolina area, New England again, and Seattle. 5 different fan bases being involved. I think that's better. And in hockey, if we take out this year, we look at the last 3, 6 cities involved, 6 fan bases, Pittsburgh, San Jose, Chicago, Tampa Bay, LA, and New York. That variety is really a lot better for sports in general, because what's the point of it? It's to get the cities and the people involved and have this expression, because when you have these dominating teams also, and your team happens to win, you get to celebrate it. The next year they do it, the fascination is just not there if you're an adult. You have other things going on in your life that are a lot more important. So when you see that parade for the second time, unless you're 5 years old, it just doesn't mean as much. But when you see the Cubs win, then you parade on the street, it means everything. So I like different fan bases being given a chance to get involved, because everybody deserves a chance to celebrate.
I agree.
I see both of your points of view, actually, so I'm kind of in between. Well, we're going to talk about baseball a little bit now. The New York Yankees are 27-17, first place in the AL East as we head into Memorial Day weekend. We'll look at what's been the best and the worst of the season so far for the Bronx Bombers and weigh in on if this is really who they are as a team. Sean, lead off. What's been the biggest positive of the Yankee season so far?
Well, Aaron Judge. The rise of Aaron Judge in the first few months of, I know he played last year, but what's considered his rookie season, and the dominance in at-bats. I mean, this guy, 6'7", 285 pounds, 25 years old, 3 sports he was able to pursue when he was in high school very well. And the way that he is just slamming the ball, these are not balls that are going right over the wall. These are balls that would go out any ballpark in the entire country. I mean, it has just been so impressive that the Yankees have now dedicated an entire section.
That's right.
And they
Yes,
take
just
like
unveiled.
18 fans at random and put up wood paneling, give them little foam
The judges'
gavel.
chambers.
Right. And
Chambers,
it's
oh my
ironic, it's
gosh.
right down the block. And I think you can even see the Bronx County
The
Criminal
courthouse.
Court building that was built in the 30s, a public works project right up the road. So he has been just so impressive. I don't know, I mean, how hard is it to keep that up over a rookie season, but I mean, what a run for him. And I have to say, I made one of my worst predictions. I like to laud my good predictions. I said Girardi wouldn't make the season, so I have to own up to the fact Girardi has been doing an amazing job thus far, and no matter what happens, he's going to guide this young team to a very respectable season this year.
Hope so. So, Steve, what's been the biggest negative of the Yankees season so far?
You know, I rarely would say the Yankees have almost no flaws, and right now I would say they're very close. But the one guy that has been really bad for the Yankees is Masahiro Tanaka. Can
That's
somebody
true.
say Ed Whitson of 2017?
Ouch.
Because he has been awful.
Way to hurt a Yankee
He
fan.
was, in spring training, virtually flawless. One earned run in the entire spring training. And we've seen him not once, but twice against Tampa Bay get absolutely shellacked. The game that really shocked me was the Sunday night game against the Astros.
Yeah.
4 home runs and out of the game, I believe, in the second inning.
Yeah.
You know, this guy, there have been rumors about him possibly needing Tommy John surgery, and now I'm starting to think maybe that arm is close to that point because he hasn't pitched a good game at all this season. And if he were pitching well, the Yankees would be much further ahead in the division than they are. So they've got to get him straightened out, and quickly.
True. So, Jay, is this who the Yankees really are?
You know, our good pal Katie Sharper and I went back and forth on this in the lead up to the show, and she's all in. I really want to say yes, Lisa. I really want to say yes, but I can't.
I know.
Just not yet. I may
know.
change my mind after the All-Star break, but as of right now, there's too many variables, too many unknowns, starting with the two guys that Sean and Steve just mentioned, Tanaka and Judge. Now, look, what's happened to Tanaka recently is a microcosm for my concerns for the entire starting rotation, and Joe Girardi is starting to agree with me, they don't get enough consistent length out of their rotation. Yankee starters have pitched through 7 innings just 8 times in the club's first 41 games and worked at least 6 innings only 20 times. That is taxing on a bullpen that is still playing without Aroldis Chapman, who's still on the DL. A strength can become a weakness if it's taxed. Now, like any Yankees fan, I am loving what I am seeing from Aaron Judge. 15 dingers, 30 RBIs, a 315, 419, 685 slash line. His swing is consistent, power to all fields, doesn't give up at bats, which a lot of rookies tend to do. Splash some nice leather in right field as well.
Yes, he does.
But here's what concerns me. Can he sustain it over a full season? What happens the third time through the league when there's a full-on book established against him? What happens when he gets a prolonged slump? How will he handle the pressure of either a long losing streak or the pressure of a playoff run in September? And those concerns to me apply to all of the kids. Torreyes, Bird, Montgomery, and especially Gary Sanchez and Luis Severino. Now look, I want to believe that Judge, Severino, Sanchez, and Betances are the next coming of the core 4, and the return to consistent contender status will start this year. But I'm just not there yet. Not yet.
Well, hopefully we get there.
Hopefully.
So the New York Mets are 19 and 25, third place in the NL East as we head into Memorial Day weekend. We'll look at what's been the best and the worst of the season so far for the Metropolitans and weigh in on if this is really who they are as a team. Steve, lead off. What's been the biggest positive of the Mets season so far?
Well, thank God, if you're a Met fan, you have one player in the lineup that has saved you from being in last place, and that's Michael Conforto. He has been as good as any Met player has ever been, as far as I'm concerned, leading off games. This guy has 13 home runs. He's hitting over 300, I believe, 325. And in addition to that, his defense has been absolutely terrific. He's thrown runners out at the plate. He's made great diving catches. And again, he's learned, as Jay has talked about, Judge learning not to give up at bats.
Yeah.
You have to remember, last year this guy was sent to the minors not once, not twice, but 3 times to get his act together. And I have to tell you right now, if we didn't have him, we definitely would be in last place the way the season's been going.
So, Sean, what's been the biggest negative of the Mets season so far?
Their vaunted pitching staff. And one guy is responsible for working too hard and it's got him into trouble, and one guy has worked too little. Briefly, I want to go into Noah Syndergaard. This guy, to me, is a Mets ace, no doubt about it. But I'm old-fashioned in the sense I do not want him having the type of workout and weightlifting regimen that he has. I mean, do you think a guy like Satchel Paige ever lifted a weight in his life? And look, he has like one of the longest
That's
careers
right.
that there's been in baseball.
Exactly.
I mean, this guy wants to be on Men's Fitness cover more than pitching for the Mets and giving innings.
He certainly
so he's
does.
working too hard, and it's worked against him this year because he's going to be out for months.
Yep.
And on the other end of the spectrum, there is Matt Harvey. I absolutely loved his heart in 2015 and wanted to be out there when the moment counted. But he wants to live off the field like an A-lister, but he's pitched like a C a solid C.
Yeah.
Over his career, his record is now 31-30. I'm old-fashioned in the sense I think win-loss record means something. It's how you're piloting the team right there. And Matt Harvey has really come up short in all respects. And what can the Mets do right now but take, the amount of innings he could give and or look to trade him? A big, what are they going to do with him? He's just
next season.
He's just disappointing.
It's true. So Jay, is this who the Mets really are?
Unfortunately, I think it is. I give Terry Collins a lot of credit for what he was able to do with this MASH unit, getting to the playoffs last year, respectable at times this year. But I don't know if they're ever going to be whole again. This rotation is starting to remind me, and Steve, you'll appreciate this, of the Generation K days.
A little bit.
Pulsifer, Instringhausen,
Yes.
Wilson, lots of promise and potential.
Yep.
A little light on the production.
A little light on the production.
Dividends in 2015, DeGrom, Syndergaard, Matt Harvey with their peaks. Not as much now. I agree with you, Sean. The current version of Harvey looks like a guy who needs to get out of New York with that over 550 ERA.
may have to.
More
Maybe
time
he
in the
needs a
tabloids.
change of scenery.
He may need a
Maybe.
change of scenery.
Look, Syndergaard, I think, made an immature decision not to get an MRI at the end of April,
Absolutely.
pitching with a possible lat strain.
Right.
He's
Yep.
never going to be the same in 2017. DeGrom just went through 5 straight starts, giving up 3 runs or more, and he's more of a number 2 guy than an ace. And unfortunately, he has to be the ace because he's the last man
He's the
standing.
last one we have.
Topsy-turvy lineup, both due to health and production issues. 500 at best for the team this year, unfortunately. This was supposed to be the year they claimed that title of most popular team in New York. It now seems that they may have given it back to the Yankees.
No doubt.
And it may stay in
may
the
have.
Bronx for a good long while,
We'll see
unfortunately.
if they get healthy. We'll see if that changes.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge part of it, of course.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
honestly, I don't. This is going in the opposite direction for me right
But
now.
baseball is
A
a
lot of people
long
would say-
season.
Yeah,
and
it
they're
is.
one
That's
streak
it.
away
It's
a
from
long
getting back into
season.
it. The Yankees
That-
are one streak away from going to the middle of
That's
the road.
the hope I have, that they'll turn this around
It's
soon.
just quite a drop-off from last
It's
year.
quite a
It
drop
is.
off, and I got
Yeah.
to tell you, the way the
What?
Nationals are tearing up the National League East, I don't know that you guys are getting into the wild card.
I don't know either,
Let
Ben,
me throw
but
this
thank
in right
God it's a
now.
long
Since
season.
the hockey players are going, who does everybody like in the finals? Is Penguins going to take it again, or is it going to be?
I got to give the edge to the Penguins on their own because of their experience
Yeah.
in Sidney Crosby.
How about Nashville, first time in the playoffs?
It's a great story. That is a great story.
That is a
I
great
got to tell you.
story.
It's a
Well,
great
that
story.
music means it's time for the 3-minute warning. Sean, lead off.
I support the Seahawks management if they go ahead and sign Colin Kaepernick as a backup. But I also support each other owner if they don't want to have anything to do with him. Just like Kaepernick used his right on a terrible team to make a political protest that eclipsed nearly every other athletic story that the league exists to create, owners have a right to say, no, thanks. I see little upside to having you here. You're not all that awesome, and the majority of my fan base who pays cash money for the product I put out feels disrespected when you first sat and then took a knee during the brief moment that we all try to share being Americans. Now, personally, I'm using sports more than ever to keep as far away as possible from that vicious 24-hour news cycle of politics and division.
If Lonzo Ball is available, will the Knicks pick him at number 8? The 2017 NBA draft selections just took place a few weeks ago, and as usual, the New York Knicks are on a seemingly never-ending quest for a potential star point guard to lead them out of the barren wilderness of being a miserable sub-500 team looking for a way out of the hell they've created for years. Magic Johnson, now the Los Angeles Lakers GM, has already brought in DeAndre Fox and Malik Monk of Kentucky for a look-see. So with the Lakers having the number 2 pick, surprisingly the door may now be open for the Knicks to actually get arguably the best point guard in the draft, Lonzo Ball of UCLA. His father might have a coronary with the thought of his son not being drafted by the Lakers, as he arrogantly surmised would occur. The Knicks could be the beneficiaries in this deal. Besides, the big baller brand sneaker line could use the New York audience. While his dad, LeVar, can get back at the Lakers and say, "I told you so," railing on about his son's great basketball prowess, Lonzo would make Noah and Porzingis a lot happier, provided they're not traded. Seems like a good idea. Now, Zen Master, let's get it done.
Ryan Leaf was the NFL's number 2 overall draft pick in 1998 after Peyton Manning. He went 4-17 as a starter, threw only 14 touchdowns against 36 picks, completed only 48% of his passes, and was sacked 65 times. He was out of the NFL 3 years later, arguably the biggest bust in NFL history. In his own words, he was a spoiled, entitled athlete, called out teammates, he was abusive to the media, and he was a cancer in the locker room. He said his behavior was why he was an addict long before he took his first drug and long before that day in 2013 when he was charged with breaking into 2 houses and stealing prescription painkillers near his hometown of Great Falls, Montana. He was sentenced to 32 months in prison and spent the first 26 in a self-loathing state on suicide watch until his cellmate got him to finally stop feeling sorry for himself and convinced him to go to the library to help teach fellow prisoners to read. Leaf says it was the first time in his life he was ever of service to anyone other than himself. That started him on his road to redemption. Upon his release, he rebuilt his life on a foundation of service and is now a program ambassador for Transcend Recovery Community, traveling the country sharing his story to help others, including the incoming class of quarterbacks from this year's draft. With potential professional athletes, he likes to talk about the fact that even though you're a great athlete, that doesn't make you a great person. And if you can build that foundation first, everything else usually follows suit. Ryan Leaf may have learned that lesson the hard way, but by learning it, he finally found his place in the world.
The NFL overtime period will now be reduced from 15 minutes to 10 minutes per the owner's recent vote. While this isn't exactly an earth-shattering development, it does bring the possibility of making OT a little more exciting. Yes, overtime is usually pretty exciting in and of itself, but sometimes by the 10th or 11th minute with no one scoring, it tends to get a little boring and drag on.
True.
Perhaps knowing they don't have the full 15 minutes to run their regular offense, teams will play less conservatively and at a faster pace, maybe even no-huddle style. This will definitely spice things up and make OT even more interesting. And yes, there's the possibility the shortened period will create more tie games, but that's not really the end of the world, is it?
Nope.
Plus, it will help prevent exhaustion and injuries that happen when players are forced to play a full fifth quarter. Kudos to the owners. This is a good thing for the league, and I'm on board for anything that makes my beloved football even more entertaining. For Jay Kaplan, Steve Ferguson, and Sean Roman, I'm Nisa Petrilli. We would all like to wish our executive producer, Pedro Hazel Jr., a very happy birthday.
Happy birthday,
Happy birthday,
Pedro!
Thanks for spending part of your evening with us. We'll see you on June 8th for another edition of On the Sports Lines. Remember, if you want to see this show again or catch up on any of the ones you might have missed, check us out at youtube.com/onthesportslines. And check out our blog at onthesportslines.blogspot.com. Good night, everyone.
Night, everybody.
Everyone.